way just to make sure that we saw what was happening here. I have her next to me, actually. Thank you so much for being willing to speak with us. This is Lindsay. Lindsay, will you tell us what you've seen?
Sure. I was running errands, and on my way home, I saw the smoke. And unfortunately, when I saw that there was going to be a red flag warning starting, I believe it was Wednesday, I just knew it was going to be, unfortunately, the harbinger of some wildfires. Didn't think it would be here in Fallbrook. So I was on my way home. I saw where it was. I have friends and family that live just over the crest of this hill. So I wanted to see if I could get as close as possible. And I roll up, and there's flames on this hillside canyon. And I was trying to flag fire department people down, and I saw you guys, and hopefully there's been nonstop air attack. And there's a ton of crews. I have a ham radio license, so I've been listening. There's a ton of crews at the local grocery store about 5 minutes from here, ready to go. But what's hard in places like Fallbrook and all along the 15 corridor, you have these canyons where it's almost impossible to attack it by foot. So you have to rely on the fixed wing and the helicopters. We've seen plenty since I've been here, so hopefully they'll be able to get this to calm down before winds pick back up this evening.
Thank you so much. So since you've seen so many of these, is there anything that in particular sticks out about what you're seeing right now?
I'm just grateful that it's not too windy and the visibility is still good enough that it allows for the air attack, because honestly, with how fast stuff travels up these canyons, the only way that they're going to get a hold on this quickly is with the air attack. So I've been grateful to see both helicopter and fixed wing air retardant drops multiple times in the 10 or 15 minutes since you guys got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple more things. One about your family, you said they were just over the other side there. And we have evacuation zones and places for them to go. Do you know if they have access to be able to get up?
I haven't been able to get a hold of anybody. I haven't even tried to call because I know it's probably chaos for them right now, but I'm just hopeful that everybody that's on the GERD side, close to the canyon where this started, on the valley floor, I'm hoping that everybody got out.
Okay. How long have you lived in this area?
I have been in Fallbrook since 1984.
Oh, wow.
So actually the house that I was checking on it's my uncle's, and we lived there when we got married we lived there briefly when we first got married. There's a lot of sentimental family memories, but unfortunately where the fire started is it's a spot that has had fires previously. So it's just one of those things where, the Santa Anas are coming, and you just cross your fingers that it's not going to happen anywhere near you.
Got you. I'm getting questions about if there's been fires here specifically before 1984. I mean,
I've lived here my whole life, practically, usually every 20 years or so. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not unheard of to have things pop up, especially when they have the wind and the dryness that we've been having.
I'm appreciative of your experience too. I'm curious if there's livestock in the area or other things.
It's Fallbrook, so it is rural, more rural than say somewhere, I don't know, more like San Marcos. But there goes the helicopter right now. Because it is Fallbrook and we have the zoning that we have, it would not be unheard of to have people with properties that had horses and whatnot. I'm just hoping, I'm hopeful that people have been able to get things evacuated. But Fallbrook, we've been through this kind of stuff before, and people are really wonderful to their neighbors. And I'm sure there's a Facebook group called Friends of Fallbrook. I am sure people are already on their volunteering services to come with horse trailers and help evacuate. So I'm praying that everybody gets out without too much loss of property and whatnot.
I know we're in the peak fire season right now, so of course we were bracing for this. And one of the main messages is to always have an evacuation plan. You were saying that you can't reach your family right now, but do you guys have a plan in place or certain things that you do when this happens?
I think unfortunately, we are all aware enough that by the time the calendar rolls around to October, we know Santa Anas are going to be here. So I hope that most people have it. And it's not that I haven't been able to get a hold of. I just know better than try and call. Because right now, if I was evacuating, the last thing I'm going to do is try and answer the phone. So I hope that most people are prepared. And even me coming over here to check, in my head, I was running through, okay, if the winds change, if the fire moves, I have ways that I know I can safely get out of here. So I'm hopeful that people have their box with their medication, their prescriptions, all of the important documents. Most people should have that little box right near there that when stuff happens, they can get out in a hurry. Yeah. So my fingers are crossed.
Okay. Thank you so much. Trusting that your family has, the plan and knows what to do in this moment. We're again on Sumac Road, just up here, really smoke picking up, visibility dropping by the second out here. But we're going to stay here. If you have any other questions, please come back to me and we'll keep you updated with what we're seeing.
Okay, nice job out there. We really appreciate it, and we wish that woman and her family the best. We want to give everyone a look from our Sky Ranger 7 here, news chopper, and you can see quite a bit more white smoke. Things from this vantage point look better than they did a short time ago. Still, this is a very active fire and a concerning situation because hotspots can be touched off at any moment with embers that can be fanned by residual Santa Ana winds. Let's bring in our meteorologist, Greg Bledsoe. This is something we've been talking about all week long, the concern for wildfire. Greg, what kind of conditions are we seeing up there right now?
Yeah, it's still really dry out there. Now, had this happened yesterday or the day before, it probably been much worse because obviously we were seeing much stronger winds, those Santa Anas coming off the desert. Right now, what we're seeing, these are your current wind speeds and directions right now. So take a look up at Fallbrook there, only seeing 12-mile-per-hour gusts in the general Fallbrook area. That doesn't necessarily mean right there where the fire is burning. We'll take a closer look at that later on. But you can see if you look at all the arrows, everything onshore right now. That is very good news. Now, typically when we have an onshore flow, we start to see our relative humidity bump up. And that is true. We're not quite as dry as we were yesterday, but still, this dry air mass that's been in place during these Santa Anas is still here. So it is still very dry out there. Not only that, but our fuel moisture levels have been extremely dry, not just this week, but for the last several weeks. We're going on 6 months in a row with below normal rainfall. We zoom in a little bit here on Fallbrook to give you a closer look at the wind direction there. Again, this is all onshore at the moment, 12-mile-per-hour gusts in the general Fallbrook area. So that is good news. But again, it is still very dry out there. Take a look at our relative humidity. Not as dry as yesterday. Remember yesterday, we had a lot of areas down in the single digits. That said, this is still incredibly dry. Our relative humidity right now down into the teens for a lot of places. Fallbrook there at 12%. Most of our inland valleys there close to around the 10% area. So still very dry out there. Our fuel moisture levels have been down in the single digits this week, 5 to 10%, which for some reference there, anything below 30 is considered dry fuel. And that's because, again, we're coming out of our driest months of the year. All the fuel is very dry. So anytime we have a fire this time of year, it has the potential to spread, and there's a lot of fuel for it, whether the winds are blowing or not. So that's why I say the last couple of days, had we had a fire like this, those Santa Ana winds would have been able to help it spread a little bit more. Just because those winds die down doesn't necessarily mean that the fire potential dies down, because of course it is still extremely dry. So relative humidity looks like that right now. However, as we head into the evening hours, we get a little bit of a reprieve. Anytime the temperature drops, our relative humidity goes up. So we'll see us a little bit of a rebound later on tonight as we get back to the 20-30% for our relative humidity. That doesn't necessarily mean that the air is still not very dry. It will still be dry overnight tonight and into tomorrow. And then our wind direction is going to shift tonight to more of an offshore flow. You can see the Fallbrook area a little bit more offshore, not necessarily the strong gusts we've been seeing with that Santa Ana, but still that dry offshore flow will return later on tonight. What we're going to do right now, I'm going to go over and check for a weather station closest to where that fire is burning so we can get a little bit more accurate view of what is happening right there in that specific area, and then we'll check in with you a little bit later on.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for the update, Greg. Joey Safchik, live for us in the car along Gerd Road, and that is the western north-south boundary of our evacuation orders. What are you seeing? What are you hearing while you're out there, Joey?
Yeah, we're turning off of Highway 76, Monica, onto Gerd Road, and I'll show you now this traffic jam here because people are being rerouted, turned around, and I do want to say our bandwidth may be a bit low because of all the people here, so if you can't hear me at any point, do let me know. But we drove in, we were coming actually all the way from the coast, from Encinitas, and we could see the smoke, and it looked like one of those darker, grayer, more ominous plumes of smoke. But now that we're here, and as soon as I can get a vantage point to show you, I will. This is my photographer, Jeff Herrera here. You can see it's dissipating. It looks a bit lighter, as you've been mentioning, Monica, but there were traffic backups on Highway 76 coming in. You mentioned earlier, this is an area where there's livestock, horses. We did see horse trailers and people going hopefully to evacuate some of those horses there. But again, there are already traffic backups, people being turned away here. We saw several fire engines. It looks like they were being moved or rerouted as well. We're doing our best to get positioned so that we can get some more information for you all. But for now, that's the update here from Gerd Road. Back to you, Monica.
Okay, great. Are you seeing most of the traffic that you're in? Are people leaving the area? Or are they trying to drive toward the area?
We are seeing a lot of people who look like they are trying to drive towards the area. They're turning onto Gird Road, and I'll show you as we inch a little bit closer. You might be able to see some of those people. It looks like there are some sheriff's deputies up right in front of us turning folks away. It looks like it's actually CHP, forgive me. So you can see these folks here were trying to get in, and now they're being rerouted and turned around back onto the 76.
You know, this is such a concerning situation for residents who may have been at work when this broke out and certainly want to go home to either evacuate things or maybe pets or other things. But really right now, they've closed that Gird Road. We got an overhead look of it with Sky Ranger 7 not too long ago, and we could see that they were turning people away and letting those first responders through, but they have to keep those pathways clear because this is such a difficult area to access. What has been the first responder ground response that you've witnessed from where you are?
People seem calm right now. We're witnessing folks. Like I said, there's definitely a traffic jam. I saw a couple of people who looked a little bit confused or stressed out just through their windows, but it seems like there's a pretty steady flow of traffic being turned around. People are being responsive and listening to what law enforcement is instructing them to do. So from where we are right now, there is one CHP vehicle stopped blocking off the road. We can see 2 San Diego County fire engines, but again, there's not an overwhelming presence here, and people do seem to be receptive to what's being asked of them right now.
Joey, just to recap,
Yes, sir.
you're going north on Gird,
Appreciate it.
right? Towards the evacuation areas.
We
Which direction are you going on?
yes, so
Sorry,
we
to jump
actually
spot.
just passed through the area that is blocked.
Okay.
No, that's quite okay. We just passed through the area that is blocked off by law enforcement, so we're out of that traffic jam now, and yes, we are headed now towards the area where the staging area is for the fire. And what I did.
We know her bandwidth is having difficulty. So Joey Safchuk, we will check back with you. We really appreciate that update. We're looking at an improving situation, it appears, from our vantage point here, just looking from Sky Ranger 7. But we do know that, what was it, between 40 and 50 acres have burned so far? 48 acres have burned so far. And we've also been checking in with our Chandel Moniz, who is live at the scene as well. Chandel,
Road?
Yes, Sumac Road. Can you give us where are you in relation to the 15 or the 76? Do you know?
Maybe about half a mile or so, not far at all. But Sumac Road, I mean, since we left and then came back to me, hopefully you can see the difference from the view here on the ground, but it's a lot lighter, a lot easier to breathe, a lot less flurries flowing around in the air. We're gonna get my Dr. Dispatcher to pan over and show you. We've seen several drops. I've seen probably a dozen or so patrol cars coming through. So hopefully we are just bracing and getting right over the hump here to be able to really get a handle on this. Definitely a good sign. That's the latest drop we just saw there.
Chandel, while you sit tight there for just a second, to give our viewers at home a perspective, we were just talking to our Joey Safchuk, who was going north on Gird Road, which is the western boundary of the evacuation zone. And Chandel happens to be actually on the eastern perimeter. She is just west of the 15, north of the 76 along Sumac Road. And so that runs directly through kind of the mandatory evacuation area. But the difference you could see was clear air, clear smoke where Joey was, and Chandel is still getting kind of the smoke overhead. But I would say, Chandel, correct characterization that it does seem that the situation appears to be improving. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet here, and certainly first responders are not letting up, but we've seen numerous air tankers, helicopters, both retardant and water drops trying to get the upper hand and put out a lot of this fire. Any more residents in that area? I know you just spoke with that one gal. What else are you hearing from people?
Absolutely cautiously optimistic, Monica. That's the best way that I can categorize this right now, because it does seem to be getting better very quickly. Very quickly. I have seen just a few people driving by. I had a young lady besides Lindsay who was gracious enough to speak with me, stop and tell us that there's a loose dog down there, that she's rushing up to go help her uncle or another family member, and then maybe we'll come back down. I'm seeing someone else ride back on their bicycle right now. So people in passing but not a lot of people at all. I'm thinking that a lot of these folks have taken the warning to evacuate, and the ones that are heading in are getting family members that need help, but not a lot of people out here at all. And I think that's a good thing, at least until this is fully under control.
Yeah, for sure. And you can think about the time of day that this happened, when pets are home alone sometimes and people are at work, and likely the reason why there's traffic backup, people trying to get back into these areas that frankly aren't really easily accessible. What was it like for you, Shondell, being out there trying to get back to the location where you're speaking to us right now?
I think that I just probably beat the traffic and the rush that Joey is experiencing. We were just looking for a vantage point and happened to find Lindsay here, who was telling us, this is where it is, this is what I'm seeing, this is what we're experiencing. So I'm sure if we were to try to leave, we would run into all of that. But at least for right now, fortunate enough to be able to get in here pretty easily and see what we're seeing right now.
You know, Lindsay mentioned something about neighbors helping neighbors in this rural community of our North San Diego County. And as you were speaking, we were looking at Sky Ranger 7, zooming in on some of these properties, and you could see what appeared to be a resident or homeowner with a shovel trying to turn over dirt, perhaps putting out spot fires, because that's kind of the situation right now where things look to be dying down to some degree, but any ember can touch off a fire in any given location. And I think that's kind of like whack-a-mole. You know, you're trying to make sure that nothing flares up at any given time.
And it's a good sign that we haven't
100%.
seen active flames from at least our vantage point. And I assume obviously from where you are, Shondell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This neighborhood's really, I mean, the best way that I can think to say it is just a well-oiled machine when it comes to wildfires. They know what to expect. They know how to react. We're seeing people start to leave. I hopefully just were able to show you a huge RV camper that went by and then another sheriff's patrol vehicle going behind it. But let me step out of the way for this next patrol car here.
Oh, wow.
That is the view, that is the scene. That's what we've been seeing all day. Lots of people coming in and out, but definitely a sense of urgency to them. They know what to do. They're not quite so much panicked, it seems, for their safety, maybe for their animals and making sure their elderly family is okay, but they know what to do.
Yeah, this is something that we all prepare for here in San Diego County. First responders most heavily, of course, but homeowners as well, with having a plan.
Sure. And given just the fires that we've seen in the last week or two, we're kind of on alert, and especially up to our north with those active burning fires now. When you think about the landscape of this area, we talked about livestock, we talked about crops, wineries, you know, the traffic of everything right now, and seeing that first responders, law enforcement trying to get people out of the way to a temporary evacuation spot that we mentioned earlier. And I can mention one more time here in Bonsall, at Riverview Church, 4980 Sweetgrass Lane in Bonsall is where that temporary evacuation is. But taking a look at, you know, a lot of these homes are expansive and huge, but also tucked away, lots of brush surrounding, and also knowing in this area, you've kind of been on high alert and watching the winds. You know, we know that there was a red flag warning that recently expired, but definitely top of mind. You can see this sheriff's deputy walking into the property now.
A lot of times going door to door and making sure that people are okay and that they have safely evacuated. Shondell, from your vantage point, what have the weather conditions felt like? I know fire sometimes generates its own kind of conditions, but are you feeling any winds where you are?
Hey, yes, I am feeling some wind. We're showing you now just kind of how things are dissipating. Lots of lighter smoke here as opposed to all of the embers. The wind is there, but it's not overpowering. It's just enough to remind you of what's going on and what we're smelling and picking up and putting it all kind of in our airways here. But definitely better. I cannot stress that enough just in the past 10 minutes or so, and we're grateful for that.
Yes, we sure are. Okay, Shondell, sit tight, be safe. We will check back with you. We're looking at the water drop from one vantage point, and we're looking at homeowners trying to turn their water hoses onto the flames in some point too. Let's check in with our meteorologist, Greg Bledsoe, who has an update on the weather conditions in this area.
Yeah, what we wanted to do is look right at that
Now
particular area where the fire is burning. So last time we were talking, I give you some general conditions for that area up near Fallbrook. But what we want to do now is we come back to these maps here. We're going to zoom in on right where that fire is burning. There are weather stations all over the county, so typically we can get in pretty close on a particular one near a fire. This one is burning just west, or this particular weather station is just west of where that fire is burning. 16-mile-per-hour gusts right now. Again, the good news here is that these are west winds onshore. Normally, when we see onshore gusting, we say, okay, well, that's not super dry air. That's very good news. But we know the air is very dry out there, left over from the Santa Anas. That dry air mass still in place, even though the east winds, the north and northeast winds have calmed down. So look at our relative humidity right now, right near the fire, 16%. So even though the winds aren't gusting as strong as they were yesterday and the day before, where we were seeing 40 to 50 mile per hour gusts in certain parts of the county. In fact, we had a few 60 plus mile per hour gusts. So it's not nearly as strong right now. But again, the air is just so dry. It's also not overly hot. But again, this is the main factor that makes our fire danger still critical, despite the fact that those Santa Anas have calmed down. So these are the conditions right now, right in that area that firefighters are dealing with. Again, a little wider view here, and you can see onshore flow all over the county. The Fallbrook area, we zoomed in on this earlier, 12 mile per hour winds in the general area there, but then we get a little bit wider here, and you can see some of the far eastern parts of the county, 10 to 15 mile per hour gusts. But again, all onshore flow. The humidity, again, very dry. The good news, our red flag warnings, we take a look at our map right here, expired about 3 hours ago. A reminder, though, that just because our warnings and our advisories expired does not necessarily mean that our fire danger is over, as we are seeing. We got through the last couple of days with no fires, despite some very strong winds, very low humidity, and some red flag warnings for the county. And now, as soon as that expires, we have a fire. If you take a look up to our north, most of those wind warnings and red flag warnings have expired. But all that gray area right there, those are air quality alerts for the areas to our north because of the fires burning up there. We have not seen any of that down here yet, any of the smoke from the fires up there. But now we have our own smoke coming from this fire. And as the evening goes on, that will continue to spread out around the county. So don't be surprised, depending on how this fire goes, if it can continue to grow, if we see an air quality alert issued here in San Diego County, or possibly as we get into the weekend as that smoke starts to spread out. But again, that all depends on how long this fire can burn, how much fuel it can burn. And right now, it's nowhere near the size of some of those fires to our north. We talk about the rain, the lack of rain over the last several months all over the county, May through September. Now, we just wrapped up October, 6 straight months of below normal rainfall. So while we may not be seeing the strong winds right now that we were seeing yesterday, it's so dry. Our fuel moisture is so dry out there because we have gone several months in a row with below normal rainfall. In fact, this is more so the San Diego metro area, but this is true all over the county. We're seeing a tenth of an inch or a few tenths of an inch over a span of several months. So it's so dry. What happens there is then all of that fuel dries out over the months. And not only that, but even the very little rain that we got, say last weekend, when we got a little bit of rainfall, a few tenths of an inch, the effects of that are minimal and short-lived because we had a weaker Santa Ana on Monday, if you remember. And by the time that was finished, it basically dried up any of that rainfall, any of that moisture that was added to the fuel over the weekend. So again, it doesn't take very long once those winds blow to continue to dry out that fuel. We are seeing very dry fuel out there right now. It's the time of year, even though we can get Santa Anas for several months, all the way through May, really. This is the time of year that we worry about them the most because this is the time of year we're coming out of our dry months and things are just so dry out there. Again, the humidity, the dry air, that is the risk today. That's what we continue to watch, not necessarily the winds. We're going to keep following this, though. We'll check in a little bit later on with you, let you know if those weather conditions change as well.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Super insightful and giving you a look from a very far zoomed out vantage point. We're looking southeast. So the 15 that's kind of running through the middle of the screen there. And then you're looking at the 76 that's running right, left, east, west there. You can see where the fire is, but you can see the smoke has fanned out across the county in the northern part of San Diego County. A smoke advisory has also been issued. North County Fire reporting that, you know, if you see or smell smoke, not surprising, from this 50-acre vegetation fire east of Gird Road and Pala Mesa Drive.
And let's take a look at this earlier video. You can see active flames there. And we were talking about just the vegetation in this area, the homes that are tucked away, the hills, the brush, and people probably trying to get their livestock out. Now, the good news is we have not seen any active flames in quite some time. It's been at least an hour now, hour and 15, maybe an hour and a half since we first kind of started hearing about news of this fire. We have several crews on the ground. There have been, if you're just tuning in now, we're calling this the garden fire because of where it originated. And again, video from earlier, you can see a lot of fighting from the air right now as people are also asked to leave their homes and move to a specific location that we have been telling everybody. And we're looking at live there. You can see kind of the hazy sun. And I think that we can say it's cleared up quite a bit. And Chandel was also saying from her vantage point on the ground, things look to be improving. You can hear sirens. Law enforcement is actively going through these neighborhoods, even at times knocking on doors. We have seen some homeowners that are on the edges of their property digging or creating lines or doing what they can. And in many times, you know, in fires in the past, we've seen the swimming pools come in handy, but we have not gotten to that point where firefighters are setting up and pulling from swimming pools. We also don't know what the fire hydrant situation would look like in that area. Monica, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, the properties are so spread out in these kind of fingered canyon, rolling hills type of areas. And certainly first responders, the police are trying to clear the way there so that the first responders can get through to access some of these remote properties that are on farmland or ranches or vineyards or of the like. But certainly as residents in this area are looking overhead and seeing somewhat of a clearing of the smoke that they saw from just an hour ago, that is a welcome relief on this Friday afternoon.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we can pull up those evacuation maps. We're hearing no containment at this point. I know that the evac map here, we've got orders and we've got warnings in place. And just seeing from, I think it was North County Fire that just tweeted something. You know, the shaded areas in red in the map, they are evacuation orders. So if you live within those borders, that means please, you know, leave. It means everyone in the impacted area should go immediately. Reading from this tweet from North County Fire, the shaded areas in yellow are under an evacuation warning. So you should prepare to evacuate now so you're ready to leave if those conditions change. We're seeing some brown smoke in the air, you know, not something we want to see, but it's dissipating pretty quickly. We know Greg Bledsoe was talking about the winds earlier. Had this been a couple days ago, we might be in worse shape than we are now, but you can kind of see, doesn't, you know, the palm trees moving there a little bit. There is wind. We know that there are severely dry conditions out there. We've got several crews on the ground. Again, those evacuation warnings and orders in place.
The northern point of that evacuation order is Retchie Road. The western north-south road is Gird Road. Basically anything north of the 76 and west of the 15 within that kind of quadrant have been urged to evacuate, and first responders knocking on doors within that area. Another vantage point for you here. I believe this is from Joey Safchik and Jeff Herrera, who are along Gird Road, giving you a look sort of from the southern western quadrant, looking northeast at some of the smoke, some of the burn area in this very rural area of our North County.
And at this point, we know first responders, at least 3 agencies involved, you have on the ground, the Sheriff's Department, North County Fire, and CAL FIRE that made their way just recently to join forces there and get this under control.
We're going to keep you updated on the progress that fire crews are making there in our North County. You can find everything at NBC7.com. Also download our news app where we'll give you push alerts for situations just like this kind of breaking news. Our crews are preparing for our news coming up at 4 o'clock today, again at 5 and 6, and we'll have all of the latest as our ground crews are fanned out, gathering some information and checking in on the progress of this wildfire in the North County.
Of course, we'll keep you updated.
For now, I'm Monica Dean alongside Jackie Crea. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you in an hour.
For the Saluta Service Festival.
I would say the story's about a young woman trying to find her place in the military and trying to seek care for very serious mental health conditions and not getting the care she needed.
I felt like she was in good hands, and it's so wrong.
I feel wholeheartedly her death could have been prevented.
Mental health, our military, and a sailor in crisis.
We asked an economist to answer some of the internet's most searched questions about Social Security in the United States.
Hello, I'm Julia Coronado. I am an economist. I have a company called Macro Policy Perspectives, and I am also a professor at the University of Texas at Austin.
What is Social Security?
Social Security is a social insurance program where young people pay taxes to help finance the retirement of older people who are no longer working. It's a contract in our society to take care of older people.
How is Social Security calculated?
Everybody pays the same tax rate when they're working. So you pay 7% and a bit of your wages, and your employer pays 7% of your wages into the program. And then for when you retire, the formula that determines your benefits, they calculate based